Oops. Hey everybody, Jorge here, reviewing Legend of Zelda Windwaker. I just passed it. It was. I've never really made a review for a video game before, so this is new, and I don't really see them that often. I see playthroughs and I see journal articles like Kotaku talking about reviewing. Excuse me. Talking about reviewing the game, but I've never really seen a video game review just like this one, when it comes to like making movies. So this is my first one, and hope you like it. My thoughts were that it was a very minimalistic game. Like, when you think of minimalism, it's like the art is very minimalistic. I saw the GameCube version of the game. Like, when I was actually playing the game alongside a walkthrough of the game. So I was using the internet to help me pass the game, because I was like, if it wasn't for that art, walkthrough guide, whatever you want to call it, I wouldn't have passed the game, just because there's things that are just like, I'm just too clueless. My critical thinking isn't that great. Like, what I realized mostly about this game is that games require a lot of critical thinking for you to assess a situation and be able to figure out what you need to do so you can get to the next stage or next level. That's not easy. I remember I saw some people playing The Last Guardian, and they would figure out what they needed to do in like a matter of 10, 15 minutes max. Sometimes it'll take them 5, sometimes it'll take them a minute or 2, sometimes 10 minutes, and those things were interesting, because I would never have passed those games. Like The Last Guardian, that's why I'm not gonna play it, because I'm not gonna get through it. I'm gonna look at the walkthrough or the guide, and it's just gonna be very convoluted, I think. So I'm not gonna bother with it. So that's what this game taught me more than anything, that games are very they require a lot of critical thinking, and people underestimate the power of games and how they just think it's bland and generic entertainment, but that's not true. Depending on certain games, I do think that they're just bland generic entertainment, but some other games, they're not by any stretch of the imagination. They're pretty damn hard. And they require a lot of intense concentration and will to try to figure out what you need to do in the game. So I don't think so. There was this one part where I remember in the game where you had to move the block towards, because you have to fall into a room, and then you have to move that block to the space exactly where you left the hole in the ceiling, so that you can not only use your one of your items that you acquire in the game late in the game, which are the boots, iron boots, and then you have to take them off. So you have to put them on. You have to get on the. You have to actually no, mind that. You have to rewind a little bit. You have to get another block, and you have to put it next to the one with the spring block, and then that spring block has to go on top where the space that was created in the roof that you fell through. So you have to get on one of the blocks so that you can get on the spring block. Does that make sense? So once you do that, you equip your boots. And then you fly, and then you wait, and then you push down on the block, on the spring. You push it down, and then you take them off, and with that momentum, with that compressed momentum, you jump. It flies you through the air, and you have to use your leaf, your canopy leaf or something like that, your deku leaf, and you have to hover across these spikes that are above the room that you're in. And I was like, I was never gonna figure that shit out. So yeah, critical thinking, guys. I don't know. I just think people rush these things off to the side, and it's too easy to disqualify them. Now, I do think there are a lot of problems with games. Like, I was watching this walkthrough of the game, and I just thought how I don't know. I just thought, this guy is like probably in his 20s, and I have to say this, guys, playing games in your 20s is a lot different than playing your games in your teens and in your infant stages. Way different. And honestly, it does not cater to older people. I mean, the only thing that really changes about a game style, a style of game, is a playstyle of game is difficulty. So games like Dark Souls, Neo, and yeah, those games require uh, a lot of patience and just straight out masochism. Like, it requires you to be a masochist because you have to enjoy pain, and maybe these are slightly bad examples, but most games don't need to. They don't. The target range for a player is not mid-20s anymore. Why? Because once you hit your mid-20s, and I'm gonna relate it to this player that this walkthrough I found on YouTube, and I just thought, he was being very generic, and he was like, voicing out the lines in the playthrough, and he was trying to act it out, but it felt, he was kind of, mimicking it in a very, like, satirical way, like, oh, look at this bad guy, I will kill you all, and it was like, and it's generic. It is generic, but it kind of says that, he's forcing himself to make these lines sound very ominous and very dark and villainous. And it's not like that, guys. It's like very generic, and it just tells you that you grow out of games. You grow out of them. Like, it's very simplistic depictions of villains and heroes and what the hero's supposed to do. So you're playing this whole game the whole time, and you just think that this game is very generic. And it's a Zelda game, and it's supposed to be a very well received game. A lot of people love it, and you can't help but think, if this is what's great about video games, then what the fuck? Maybe there's nothing else. There's nothing more beyond this pretty simple generic game. And I thought that sometimes the genericness of the game worked against it, and sometimes the genericness of the game worked for it. For example, the art. Part of it is that they want to save money. In making an HD remake, you want to save money, and you make a game, and you don't make it too detailed because you want to save money. But at the same time, if you make it too detailed, it loses some of its purpose, some of its glory. So you don't want to do it for two reasons: because you want to save money. You don't want to make the game more artistically, sophisticated, because one, you lose the integrity of the game and the integrity of the intention of the game, and two, you lose money. So in that sense, the genericness of the very simplistic style of the game worked in a favorable way. And on the other hand, because this game is, the villain is kind of generic, the lines aren't that great, you just can't help but think, if I was younger, I would have liked it more, because I don't see these depictions as generic or simplistic. You see them as new. When you see something that is new and you're newly exposed to it, you're more likely to think that this is innovative. But as you get older, you don't see this as innovative, not that much. The only thing I really felt that was innovative was the art. The art in this game was beautiful. I loved it. I thought it had its charm, and it's charming. It's a charming game. So it grows on you, and yeah, that's what I would say mostly about this game. It's very charming. So yeah, when I was seeing the playthrough on YouTube, I was like, no, this is. You can tell that part of the reason, and he would always talk about how he doesn't really upload that often, and I don't think it's his fault. I just think it's the game's fault, honestly, because the game is very generic, and after you hit a certain peak in a certain time of in your life when you've seen a few things in life and you're like, oh, this is not nutritious to my soul. So I thought, this wasn't very nutritious towards my growth as a human being, and it has its charm, but it doesn't go very much further beyond that. And I just thought, the reason you're not uploading is because you don't really like the game. That's really what it comes down to. And the reason why it took you so long is because you didn't really like it. And I took about a month to pass this game. I honestly thought it should have taken me a lot less. I think if I would have played it for like 5 hours a day, I would have passed it in a week. But I would only do little by little, little by little. And that's fine. That's fine. But if I would have liked the game more, if I would have let myself lose, and just enjoy the game, I thought I would have passed it a lot sooner. But I don't know. I kept thinking about how I think that games are just very generic and they're not very innovative. The last game I thought was truly innovative was God of War 3. There's a scene at the end where you're diving in his subconscious, and I was just like, damn, this is good stuff. This is very deep. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in games nowadays. Something that takes me beyond that, because I think they can. They can do that. It's just that they don't. And I want to find the community of gamers where I can talk about these things. And I hope that I can find them later on, because I generally believe that there are people out there that feel the same way as I do. And they play games because they love them despite the fact of that they're very limited. And part of the reason is because the video game industry is so angular and so focused on profit and not very much on taking risks. And part of the thing that happens is, even when you hear a person within the industry saying the exact same thing that I'm saying right now, it falls on deaf ears, because you know that they're part of a system that promotes, very bland games, and it's just, market talk, and you want to believe them, but you're not being a cynic by saying that you don't believe them, because it's part of the system. And I remember I used to talk to guys, and they would tell me that they would enjoy the fact that they look forward to going into the video game industry and changing it. And that's what he told me, and I was like very inspired by that, because I respect that. But at the same time, if you go into the video game industry, it's just gonna mold you, and it's gonna craft you, and it's gonna change you, because that's the environment. The environment that you're in is the environment the environment affects you more than you think it does, I think. Like, if your environment dictates how you're gonna do in life, I think. If you live in a very successful environment, you're gonna be success driven. If you live in a very poor environment, you're gonna be poor driven. And you can get out, you can transcend, but it's really hard, because even after you transcend, you're still gonna have these like modismos, these habits of being, where you still think like a poor person, and that's not bad, but can you really transcend? I think it's hard. And back to the video games, I just don't think people can do that. And I was thinking that these games are, I've seen people online that have intelligent discussions, and I just think their discussions save themselves by continuing to play games, but at the same time, I feel like it gives more credit to the game than is actually there. I don't think it's intended. I think, they think that we're very stupid when we play games. Like, we're very narrow-minded, and we just want to get from point A to point B without really relishing in the details of the game. And sometimes that's true, sometimes that's not true. But I personally think that, like, for example, God of War 3 was a game where I could get from point A to point B, and I still relish in all the details, And I thought that there's a way that you can do it where you can do both. And then I don't know, I just think video game designers say this, but I don't think they really mean it, because it's still a highly commercialized way of looking at things. That the gamer is it's a consumer. I think a gamer is a consumer first before they're an actual gamer, and I don't like that. And because it makes sense, so that you get a very limited perception. It's about perception, and you gain a very limited perception about that. And I just thought, video games like Windwaker are like that, where you can tell that there's something going on beyond just playing. Like, as I get older, I start to look at video games differently, and I can see that there's a certain way of playing the game that the game rewards more for. If you play the game a certain way, the game will reward you more. And unfortunately, that's a very constricting sort of thing sometimes. Sometimes, like God of War 3 was a good example of how they both connected up and met and meshed well in that point, when the game was where the game, where the intended way of playing the game and the way that you want the gamer personally wants to play it really came through. And it's probably because I already have a deep fascination for Greek mythology, and it's always been there. It's just, it wasn't always told to me in a very good way. It was very academic, and it's kind of boring when you read the actual book, like Edith Hamilton's mythology. But other ways, like, when you see it in video games, when you see it referenced in video games, when you see it referenced in pop culture and movies, that's when it really drew to me. And it was like these very powerful beings, and like, and how they demonstrate their power and all that. And I just think that's why part of the reason why I really had strong inclination towards liking the game already for God of War 3. So I thought you know I was gonna like it, and it just, but that's not enough, guys, for you to like the game. It's really demanding. For a gamer is very demanding because they know what they like and what they don't like, and they know it instantly, almost. I mean, a game, as you get older, you get more sophisticated, and you're like, maybe I like this, maybe not. But for you to be able to go that far and have a sophisticated outlook on a game, and how you on a sophisticated outlook on what you like and you don't like, that's when I would say for video games, I think you're giving too much of yourself. I think that you have to you're because the game is in a very narrow sense, it's trying to reward for you to figure out things, and it's trying to get you to play a game a certain way. So when you figure something out, they want you to figure out a certain way. So I just think, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at trying to fit into a certain mold. I like for the mold to expand to how I view it, not to how I don't want it to constrain me. And unfortunately, a lot of times it does. And I just think it's very constraining the way it just like it sets a constraint on your imagination. I think gaming now sets a constraint on your imagination, and unless you play a lot of games and you experiment with a lot of different systems from different genres and different battle systems within a game, different playing systems within a game, it's gonna really be limiting. And you have to, I don't know, I just think we give too much credit to games because they're games. And I think that what I'm starting to figure out is that a game has the possibility to be educational, and it can teach you things. And I just think the game is trying to teach me certain things that I don't want to learn because it's not interesting to me, or I can tell that its motives are to get me to play more of this style so that I can keep playing and playing and playing, whereas keep playing the game, and maybe I'll give into that someday. Maybe I'll try it out and I'll see what happens. But as for now, I just think that games are a little generic, and they need to step it up, and they need to start catering towards different adult groups. I think that they need to cater to adults and really start to analyze and ask us, in surveys, ask us questions. What do you think about the game, about the playstyle? Become more informed about what a gamer is, and stop relying on the gaming industry, because the gaming industry, I've seen it. I went to PlayStation Experience, and that shit was horrible. I didn't like it. Like the percent, when I looked at the smaller indie games, I was like, this is bullshit, because I was not impressed by what was going on. I could tell that it's not all fame and glory. When you think of video games, you think of like these high profile blockbusters, like high profile blockbuster, like movies. They're like that. They're like, when you think of Neo, that's a blockbuster game. When you think of Final Fantasy 15, when I think of what else, Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty, all these games are like high profile. But when you go down to the indie games, you see that the video game industry is kind of a piece of shit, and it's profit driven, and it's ruthless. It's a very, like, it's almost a Shark Tank where they eat each other up and they try to compete to make it so that they become this high profile game, so they can elevate their game towards the status of uh, of these blockbuster games. And I just think that's the space where you should be trying to experiment, because you don't have the demands that a big corporate company places on a game studio to ensure that a certain game is a certain way. And I should end it now because it's already been 20 minutes, and I can go further if you guys like this video. And if you like this video, I'll continue on my rant. I'm gonna shout out to Brent, Brett. I don't remember right now. I hope you got to the end, and I hope you liked it. I'm gonna on Facebook. I'm gonna, what is it called? Tag you. I'm gonna tag you on Facebook, and I hope that you like this video. And I don't know. I thought because I saw your video, I saw your discussion, and I can tell that you are very well informed, and I thought that I would share with somebody with equally informed views on games. So thanks for watching. That was my review for Zelda Wind Waker. Good game, charming, a little limited, a little generic, but at the same time, it works. So you should play it. I'm probably gonna play it eventually again. So it was worth it. Thank you for watching.